So to start things off, I want to ask you guys to, this is a very difficult challenge, but I want you to say your name and your company and what it does in one sentence. Like an example, I'm Brian Morrissey, I'm the editor of Digiday, and we are a publication that covers digital media. Amit, one sentence.
So I'm Amit. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Taykey, and we advertise based on what's topical for your audience right now.
That's perfect. John.
It's tough to follow. My name is John Mellor. I run the business development and strategy group for Adobe, and Adobe is bringing together the art and science of marketing into a single platform.
Okay, run-on sentence, but a sentence.
I flunked English.
Okay, I'm Stephan Noller, CEO and founder of nugg.ad, a pan-European targeting platform that helps premium publishers to identify their audience and show ads accordingly.
That's perfect. Marco, a lot of pressure now on you now.
Marco Bertozzi, Managing Director of the Vivaki Nerve Centre, Vivaki Nerve Centre EMEA. Vivaki Nerve Centre is the future-facing unit of Publicis Group focused on technology, innovation, and partnerships.
That was good.
That was okay.
Okay.
No one failed.
What's that?
No one failed.
No one failed yet, but we're early with this. Marco, I want to start with you. A very interesting thing going on. A lot of terms get thrown around in this area, but to me, it's like comes down to a very simple thing. You can now separate the audience data from the media impression. I mean, we talked before, someone mentioned Desperate Housewives, and if you were looking to reach women 18 to 40, you bought that, even though there are a lot of dudes who watch it. First, how important is that to advertisers, this separation? Because I think when we're talking about data, this separation of the audience data from the media impression, how important is that as something you can now do?
I think we're on a journey. Our relationship with clients at the moment, the last 2 years, we've really been talking about this. It started by talking about audience rather than context, which is really what you're saying. And I think we are starting to make advertisers realize that it's important to be able to buy a single audience across multiple different inventory sources. So if you go to Microsoft and ask for 1634 men, they'll have an interpretation of that. If you go to Yahoo, they'll have an interpretation of that, and so on and so forth. So what we're doing in programmatic buying is saying to advertisers, we'll allow you to buy 1634 men across the whole universe of inventory that we're plugged into within our ecosystem. And then I think where things have got confused is we are still very big supporters of trying to combine an individual audience with strong content as well.
Sure. So it's interesting because you talk about it's almost like a pendulum, I think, between this contextual placement where content matters a lot, and then this audience, and sometimes they're in opposition. So Stephan, can you pick up on that? And what does this mean for publishers in an era where you can separate that audience data? They used to package it up themselves. So a lot of times when I hear from publishers is they kind of feel screwed.
Well, the first thing I would like to say, it creates data, to answer your question. So to detach data from the ad impression creates a lot of data also for the publisher himself. So he can run, advanced machine learning models, statistics, and so on to compute things. So for example, a woman watching Desperate Housewives will have a certain income, will have a certain, product interest and all this kind of stuff. And the publisher, can apply this knowledge and information to other ad impression he has. He can sell them at a higher price and so on. And of course, he can also put these informations into programmatic buying infrastructures and so on. So in fact, business-wise, it helps him to take the advantage, the value he can create with his content and sell that several times, either in his own inventory or even in other places.
Right. John, you want to pick up on that? I know Marco is ready to jump back in.
I mean, the one thing I would say on that is the exchange space has been synonymous with this data theft, if you like, in some people's eyes. The reality is publishers have been selling their audiences to ad networks for the last 10 years. And those ad networks have been monetizing their audiences with significant margins back to the agencies. So they've sort of been doing it already, but they've been doing it in a fashion where they've had no insight or no understanding. What the exchange infrastructure is bringing now is allowing each impression that they have to be given a individual value, and on the whole, they're seeing better returns doing it that way than they have been going direct to the ad networks.
Yeah, John, you want to pick up on that and about whether
sure.
this is a good thing for publishers?
Sure.
Because I mean, I think it was an interesting point about ad networks, because publishers complained about ad networks for years, and then this programmatic was supposed to bring more transparency to it. I wonder whether it has.
Yeah, I think there's, we're in a real state of change. I mean, we're lucky to be in an industry that's growing this fast and is this interesting, but it does create a lot of ambiguity. And I see publishers that are using data to their advantage. They're very concerned about their data leaking out, which I think is the point, and being used in ways that they don't control, that they can't monetize. And they're trying to keep, in a lot of cases, trying to keep this data and use it to their advantages in ways like, if I know that there's a contextual audience that I'm interested in, I can buy that context, but then the publisher can also extend that audience to other properties that publisher might have access to, where those same visitors or like visitors are also going. So it allows the publisher to extend an audience buy out to far beyond just the inventory that might obviously match that audience from a contextual standpoint.
Mm-hmm. So, Amit, with this, I wonder about the accuracy of the data, right? Because there's so much data out there, and there's so many intermediaries. I mean, I think I saw like Terry Kawaja's slide popped up.
Which one of the hundreds of them?
8 minutes in, Terry's slide, and because Terry made sure it did. But there's so many intermediaries that are claiming that they're using big data and that they're recombining things. How can on both the buy and sell side, people be sure that this data is what people are saying it is?
So to your point, I think there's a lot of different types of data. And Terry's slides, what they show, like the famous Luma slides, what they show you is that there's so many different aspects of the data. And I think what the exchanges and DSPs help you do is basically take control of this data and use it in one spot. And I think that's great, because it's great that you have a lot of different companies focus on different aspects of it, and then you have one company or one platform that helps you manage all the data to make the most of the data that you have. The thing with big data, there's a lot of data, and you need to know how to monetize it.
And I mean, most of it is worthless.
Well, it depends I don't agree. It depends what you want to do with it. I think the thing that's broken is not the use of the data, is actually the planning of it. It's how do you use the data. If you want to advertise to people who like Desperate Housewives, the concept it's good. You want to advertise to people who like Desperate Housewives, but why do you want to advertise to people who like Desperate Housewives? Then if you go and buy data around Desperate Housewives, you're failing. That's why the data is useless. That's why I think programmatic buying is good if you do the planning correctly. If you want to advertise to 18-year-olds who like Desperate Housewives, like TV, who said it's Desperate Housewives? Right now, it could be Justin Bieber, it could be iPhones, or it could be Android. You need to look at the audience and look at what they care about, and then activate the contextual buy. And then use the data correctly to find what people want. If you plan the thing is, how do you plan correctly versus how to use it? If you misplan in advance, you'll never be able to use the data correctly.
Mm-hmm. So, John, talk a little bit about, I mean, we've seen enormous amounts of venture capital go into using data basically to improve advertising. And the promise was it was going to make advertising so much better. First, do you think that has happened to the tune of the $4 billion or so that's been invested in this?
Certainly not yet. Not yet. I mean, it's the dollars flow to these data-driven advertisers and advertising platforms, because a lot of this is DR oriented, direct response oriented, and it's the ROI. There I've used two acronyms in one sentence. The ROI is very easily measurable. The higher order problem, in my view, is how do we start to use data and measurement to effectively understand brand impact, right? The DR problem is not hard. The brand measurement problem is hard. And that's where the dollars are waiting to come online, if we can help give these brand marketers comfort that what they're doing does have some lift. And that's the the pot of gold, in my view, for where data needs to be used.
So Marco, you have a lot of big brands as clients, right? Why does this not excite them? I mean, I would think like they're about finding their audiences, but why is this yet to catch on with the largest, the TV ad spenders?
Well, I mean, I think, we've got to put it in context. I would say this year is the first year where the numbers are significant in terms of spend, and they're still small in the grand scheme of things. You've got to, I think anyone who works with advertisers day to day in agencies, you'll get a spectrum of advertisers who don't see this as a big deal on their radar. They just see it as part of their plan. If marketing is one part of their job, then digital is a part of that, and then this whole RTB space is a part of that. You're really getting down to a point where we're not. In some senses, they shouldn't be getting all excited about it because it's still a small part of the cake. But that said, where we work more and more with advertisers closely in this space, they are getting excited, and they are starting to see the potential of what they can do, both with their own data and with.
But are they
third-party
using
data.
it beyond response? And I know the lines are blurring between brand and response advertising, but are they using it in the types of ways that they think about TV advertising?
I would say next year we would expect to see most of our growth coming from spend within programmatic space that is more towards what would be described as brand or premium. I think the DR continues to grow and will continue to grow, but clients are now asking us to really use their data and add that to third-party data to understand their audience better. So to Amit's point about the, where do you start planning? One of the things we do is we take our clients' data and we cookie sync, am I allowed to say that? And we compare it with all of the third-party data sources, which gives you a...
And by third-party data, you mean...
External data sources, so list breaking and old money, lists of cookies in certain categories. But basically what it gives you is a profile of their own audience based on their own data. So that's the planning point for us. And also you've got to break up their properties. So we might be looking at audiences they have on YouTube, data they're collecting on YouTube versus data they're collecting on their website versus Facebook, whatever it may be. Each one of those might have a different tilt. So they're starting to understand that they've got a really powerful, valuable thing, but you need them to be engaged.
Yeah.
You need the advertisers to want to really get into this space.
Right. So, Stephan, with the whole, with great power comes great responsibility thing, I think it's the time to address the privacy issue and just overall, there's so much data that people are creating in digital media, and a lot of it's being collected by people who frankly don't have a relationship with the consumer. It's not just publishers. They don't actually, they're intermediaries. And is this, how big of a risk is this entire system that's been built up around data and advertising to basically people saying, we're not okay with this? I mean, we're seeing moves obviously in Europe, it's much more aggressive than in the US, but in the US too.
Well, I think there's several aspects you have to cover. Of course, one of the huge risks in the room is regulation. The regulator, especially in the EU, I think some moves from the FTC are in the same category, but not with the same impact. So if the current data protection regulation that has been put out by the EU and is on the table as a 700 pages law, will come into place, there will be no big data space in Europe, because it requires a consent for every piece of data. So consumers will have to explicitly say yes or no if you want to track them or if you want to create any kind of data point from what they do or what they see. This obviously is would kill large parts of this industry and kick the ad industry back, I would say, 5 or 10 years. So this is one risk. The other risk, which has a huge opportunity linked to it, obviously, is the consumer himself. Because what I see, despite any regulation or what is happening in that space, is that consumers are more and more getting into a role of, taking over control over their data and getting it, that there is a data they carry on, they're producing that has a monetary value. And I see companies providing consumers with tools of control and transparency for the data they use on the rise, because that's obvious that the internet can do a much better job in providing transparency than in the physical world companies can do. And that will make a difference in the future, whether, and even, advertising companies or, the intermediaries, they can play a significant role in saying, here's this tool, you can see all the data. Perhaps you get some money back funded and stuff like that, fancy tools. But I think the transparency game has to start despite regulation.
But can you become transparent in an area that is this complex with this many players? If you go to a website, I encourage everyone to use like a tool like Ghostery and go to a publisher website, and you will then be shown the number of players who are involved in delivering a very simple banner ad, and it's overwhelming. I haven't even heard of half the companies.
But you know what, Brian? I'm a lot of discussions with policymakers, obviously not only the industry, and I was somehow tired of this question. And what I did is, with my tech people, I created a cookie printer, which is a small internet printing device where you can scan a QR code or something with your phone, and then it prints what is in your cookie, all the data that we have. Because despite the fact that we serve 20,000 requests per second, on an individual consumer's cookie level, it's 4 or 5 entries of data we have. You can do a lot, in advertising space with these 4 or 5 points. But this notion that this industry creates a data mess, behind the scenes, and it's completely impossible to get it and to start controlling it, is simply wrong. I think it can be done. Consumers can take over control. You can print out your cookie and take it in your pocket. It's not an issue, So, but of course, the industry has to do a better job in providing these tools, So, an icon in every ad that gives you easy access to the information linked to the ad, for example, like it is being rolled out across Europe currently, is a great tool of transparency, which other industry in the old world would be able to deliver that kind of transparency at that level, at that notion of being context sensitive. We can do that, and the industry is just starting to provide these kind of controls.
So, John, pick up on that and tell me whether or not this entire space is relying too much on the cookie. I think sometimes it's thought of the cookie wasn't meant to do all this. It was not invented for this. Yeah. And without the cookie, a lot of this is really hard. The cookie doesn't exist in mobile. There are all sorts of issues that sort of, I think, revolve around this reliance or over-reliance on the cookie.
Yeah. I think the big problem is cookie has a PR problem. I mean, the cookie needs to hire a PR agency because it's just, anybody who has tried to explain the cookie and its purpose to legislators, it is really difficult. And it's difficult from a general, just cookie needs a better image. Just think of it from an American who doesn't speak French. I come to this hotel, I log on to the Wi-Fi network, I get Google in French. I can't read anything. I can't read any of my search results. I can't even read the settings point to figure out how to turn it back into English. Please, I will give you my personal information. Just make an experience relevant for me. And we don't talk enough about the relevance that this can bring to consumers, the value, the positive side that this can bring to consumers. It all tends to come back to, oh no, the unknown of my data that's living in the cookie, because that's out to get me. So I would love to help fund a PR agency for the cookie.
Okay. If you have any ideas on how to improve the cookies PR problem, but I do want to, let's say that the cookies use is severely restricted, both in Europe and the United States. There's a lot of do not track things. Is that necessarily a bad thing for everyone? I understand it's a bad thing for intermediaries that rely on the cookie, but from, say, a premium publisher, top publisher, I don't see why it's a bad thing necessarily.
I think the problem is overrated. So first of all, Well, I can tell you that we don't use cookies for once. So there are definitely solutions not to use cookies. You can just look at, if you want to advertise on Facebook, you don't have to use cookies because Facebook has all the data in the platform, so you go and target on the platform. Same goes for Google. You don't have to have cookies because Google knows a lot from your account. So there are definitely solutions to advertise without cookies, and I think the industry will survive having no cookies. But I think it all goes back to what's the use of everything. Like, I think that privacy for once was actually never there. And I think privacy hasn't changed online. It just, now everything is now online in big data, so everything thinks privacy is gone. I just went I rented a new apartment. For every apartment I went to, I had to fill a form telling them who I am, even if I took the apartment or didn't want, and just want to apply for the apartment. And all of those buildings emailed me back after, asking me, hey, are you interested in the apartment? This is exactly what Criteo does, or Dotomi. It's retargeting. They want to get me through the funnel after I came in.
I think the difference is you went to those apartments and you actually filled out the form and you knew who they are.
But
no one knows who Criteo is.
But when I go to Expedia and look at look at a flight, it doesn't matter who Expedia uses to go and retarget me after to come back and buy the flight. I think it's the same thing. And data, it's whatever you tell people about you. That's what they'll know. Like if I walk naked around in the street, people will know how I look like naked. It didn't change. If I'll put a picture of myself naked online, then everyone will know how I look online. It's just like a matter everything is now digital and everything is online, so people are more worried. But it's the same data that you gave before. You just put it in an online form, and people are now surprised that it's just out there. It was there all the time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it does force a bigger burden potentially on publishers or premium content owners to deliver value in a way that you could drive authentication. I mean, because in an ideal world, we would all be able to authenticate to the sites we go to, and explicitly give that site permission, therefore, to give us personalized content. We saw a lot of that in the video streams when we were working with the Olympics. I mean, we streamed almost 90 million video streams, and all of that required authentication. So at some point, publishers may have to, if it gets to this extreme, may have to really explicitly drive value in a way that requires authentication.
Right. Marco, just a slight pivot from this. One of the other sides of the programmatic thing, mining data in order to hopefully improve advertising, is this efficiency thing. And when people talk about efficiency, I usually think they mean replacing machines with humans. How big of a change is that going to be on the agency business, when the agency business traditionally has relied on, it's been that relationship business where people interact with people?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, I always wonder whether we're looking for a sort of negative or positive response to sort of machines taking over humans.
Depends on which side you're on, machines or humans.
Well, I mean, I think, let's take an example. This is something that for 50% of the digital marketplace has been going on for many years, right? This idea of machines replacing humans is already here. Last weekend, last Saturday and Sunday, our group probably spent $10 million over the weekend on search. I can pretty much guarantee that none of the staff that work on search were in the office over that weekend. So we're already doing it. We are spending through automation, and no one's really picking up on that at the moment. So for me, I think it creates an amazing opportunity for not just agencies actually, but also on the publisher side to really not have this sort of torso of work, which is really admin-led. We have a lot of inefficiency in terms of just look at what a planner buyer does in an agency, or look what a sales guy does in a publisher. They're sending IOs, they're setting up tags, they're sending spreadsheets around the place, they occasionally pick up the phone. Why would we advocate that to our clients and say that's a good thing to do? So I think both publishers and agencies are doing the same thing. It allows us to invest in the high value people, services, whatever it may be at one end, and allow us to create good strategic work for the agencies, and then allows us to be more efficient at the other end, that instead of pushing paper around the place, we're delivering it in an automated fashion. So I think it's an opportunity.
So we'll probably be discussing this on the sort of future of the agency panel later, but it sounds like you're talking about agencies being smaller, fewer people, but more specialized.
I think, one of the fastest growing parts of an agency like Zenith Media would be Newcast, which is all around content, non-traditional planning, buying, those sorts of services. So that's all growth. So what you're really saying is, well, we may have 2 less planner buyers, but we might have 2 more people that are really working in the areas that are actually what excites clients at the moment. You know, they want events, they want content, they want things that are slightly non-traditional, what we've been doing for the last few years. So I think it's just a shift of skill sets. We may have people who are slightly more data savvy and know how to plan it, as well as execute it, and we're going to have more people focused on the high-end stuff.
Do you think you have the right people right now then? Because, I mean, a lot of agencies have, like you talked about, the spreadsheets, a lot of entry-level people, a lot of younger people who actually have a lot of big budgets. I mean, do you have the people with the right skill sets to do that?
I think when any new subject comes along, when search came along, the social, Facebooky type stuff, I think what happens is you start with a specialism. You start with an area of the business where it's focused on mobile or on social. But over time, that skill set broadens out and the shift of skill sets happens. It's not like, I think people always think this is right, you're going to go and sack 30 people and replace them with 30 data. It just doesn't work like that. You just have a natural churn of people where when you're next going to employ someone, you are thinking, well, you know, what kind of skill sets am I looking for? And in this day and age, you're going to want people who are maybe a little bit more understanding of data and technology and so on.
So I want to get to questions, but beforehand, I promised you guys to do a little bit of word association. I didn't tell them what it was going to be, and it's not just going to be about data. So, Amit, you're going to be up first.
God.
And it's more of, it's like a concept, and you got to give like a tweet size response. The future of the portal. Told you I didn't tell them.
Tweet size response for future of the portal. The portal has changed. Now it's Facebook. It used to be Yahoo. So who knows what's next?
Okay. John. The future mobile ad format.
Mobile is part of a mix. We look at mobile too much as your phone or your tablet, or I mean, it's your PC that you're walking around with. I think mobile is we're going to completely change. The word mobile likely won't exist. Here's my tweetable. The word mobile won't exist in 2 years.
Okay, that's not bad. All right, Stephan. How about Google's power in the market?
Google's power in the market is, when it comes to the display advertising market, is perhaps still underestimated because they are by far the biggest data platform. They have a single sign-on. They for them already the word mobile already disappeared because it's just part of the platform. So Google's power is underestimated when it comes to the display market.
Okay. And finally, Marco, the primacy of the banner ad.
The privacy of the banner ad.
Primacy, not privacy.
Primacy.
Primacy, like.
The banner ad is much maligned, and I still see a lot of opportunity for it in the future.
Good. I thought, because I mean, the banner ad needs a PR firm too.
Yeah.
Everyone's always wrecking on the banner ad.
Right.
I want to open it up to questions. We never did cover Hadoop versus Cassandra, so we have a few microphones. Anyone? I think she'll come with a microphone. If you could wait 1 minute.
I do hope it's going to be Hadoop versus Cassandra question.
Yeah.
Sorry, going to be a what question? What?
Hadoop versus Cassandra?
Oh, yes. No, I'm sorry. Sorry, apologies for that. No. Shannon from Morpheus, I think everybody probably knows that by now. So I'm actually not going to let you off the hook as easily as you got off the hook on the cookie question. Every time I teach, I bring cookies with me, and I remind all the students that cookies are good for them. Because I do believe that they're actually providing a service at the end of the day. But it pains me when someone like Martha Stewart, I'll assume that everybody in this room knows who Martha Stewart is, prints an entire page in her magazine to tell her readers how to delete their cookies. That scares me. So if we do end up in a situation where the cookie actually crumbles, sorry, Really did not mean that pun. What is the future potential for us to still be able to serve our consumers with good advertising?
I'll just say one thing that, won't be the entire answer, but as we mentioned, we might not be able to use the word mobile, but as everything does move to the mobile phone, the tablet, whatever other form it takes, I think we need to work harder at the whole device ID scenario. I'm not talking about fingerprinting, I'm not talking about that, although I actually don't think there's anything wrong with that either. But, I think we're just going to have to adapt to a world where we have device IDs and we understand something about that machine and serve ads to it. And I think the contextual, we haven't really talked about, the keyword contextual targeting side of things. We know from our own experience that the results we're getting from keyword contextual targeting is second only to retargeting. So I still think that's a real powerful vehicle for the future.
May I also add one thing? I think there's also a good side in consumers taking control over their cookies, even if they delete them, because I personally think cookies are actually a privacy tool right now. Because we see 10% deletion rates over a month, roughly. That means 10% of the audience takes care of their cookies because no browser comes with default settings like that. So actually a huge part of the audience, and I would say if you take those who are concerned, are aware of that piece of technology. They are aware of how to take over control, and they exercise it. They do it. So indeed, the cookie needs a brand campaign because it's a good privacy tool. All other means, fingerprinting, all other identifying mechanisms will be worse in terms of control for the consumer.
Can I take 30 seconds on that? So the thing that I like to tell folks is there is nobody in this room and nobody that will spend less time online because we don't have cookies. So in other words, the migration to digital is not going to change. Delete my cookies, don't use cookies, whatever. People will still spend more time online. Advertisers will have to follow them in some way, shape, or form. Technology companies will figure that out. It will be okay.
I totally agree. I think advertising worked on TV and works on radio and newspapers without cookies, and migration, it's where the people are. Advertising works there, and as I said, we don't work with cookies, so I'll be happy if there's a lot of laws against it. Well, I'll just be richer.
Yeah, that's great. So, it's a winner. I'm thinking about this brand campaign. The mascot I can see, Mr. Cookie.
It's a big chocolate chip cookie. Who
Yeah,
doesn't like a chocolate
totally.
chip cookie? She's got the right idea.
we should use the Cookie Monster as
The cookie, yeah.
Yes.
I was surfing, listening at you, and I was on Firefox and seeing this advertising from Firefox. What would happen if companies would spy you in real life in the way they do it online? I think the campaign online is really like war, actually, for the time being.
The real scary thing will be to say, what if people track you the way they track you offline? People don't understand this. It is so much worse. It's so much more extensive offline than it is online. And because that is not talked about, then it's because people have Ghostery and can see all these things that they see maybe the 15 people that are measuring them. What they don't see is all of the stuff that's going on offline.
Agree. Direct mail guys are definitely sketchier.
The what?
Direct mail.
Oh yeah, no, direct mail. Those guys are brilliant.
And I think to that point, we have to be careful how we combine the offline and online as well. So I know at the moment, Facebook are doing quite a lot of work with combining advertisers' CRM databases with their own databases, and Facebook are also working with Nielsen and all these sorts of things. When if a user starts seeing an ad telling them that their insurance is running out in 2 weeks and 4 days and they should renew it from their actual insurance company, I think that starts to get, that's where it starts to get creepy, for want of a better word. So I think we have to be sensible about how we use data. We need to do a big education job. The last alternative, as some companies in the Netherlands, publishers in the Netherlands are doing, is basically putting up a notice on their site saying, we need to use cookies to give you a decent experience and to make money, and if you don't like it, go somewhere else.
Okay. I see that we're over time already. I think we can agree that it was a great panel, and look forward to discussing this cookie campaign over cocktails.
The IB Europe will start a pan-European cookie campaign with the beginning of first quarter, so it's already there and will be ramped out. Yeah.
Excellent. Look forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.